Hi, everyone. This is Pastor Alan Hathaway. This is going to be kind of a short one. I just got back from a minister's retreat, so I haven't had as much time to do things as I need to. But I just want to share with you a few quick thoughts about my message this Sunday morning. It's called "Whistling by the Graveyard," and it's a continuation of my series on facing immortality. I thought about all the struggles that we have with that. This particular one, when we talk about whistling by the graveyard, there's actually two ways in which that particular idiom is used in our language. The one way that we use it is a sense of false bravado, where we are going through a dangerous situation and we are pretending like we've got everything under control and that we understand all the details and understand how everything is happening and we're in charge. But in reality, we are not in charge at all. Things are coming unglued around us, and we don't quite understand how to hold on to everything. The other way in which it is used as an idiom is that it actually does reflect a sense of real confidence, that we walk by the graveyard because we're confident in who we are and the circumstances of our life, and we aren't really troubled by these difficulties that come at us or the problems of life that come our direction, or even by death itself, because we are confident. Those are the things that I want to talk a little bit about today, that sense of being confident, or that sense of having false bravado. I thought about that in relationship to people that are materialists, or what we also call secularists, um, and this concept that there is nothing after this life. There is nothing to depend on in the future. There is nothing that I can look forward to, or anything that I need to be fearful of beyond this life. And so the graveyard is the only final solution or the final thing which I look at. I thought about that in relationship to Adam and Eve and their fall in the Garden of Eden. We often think about that situation um, as that decision to eat of the tree, but in reality, it brought into human existence some very disturbing aspects. The first aspect that it brought into us is the desire within each of us as humans to be our own God and determine our own sense of right and wrong. We want to do things on our own terms without any responsibility beyond ourselves. The second thing that it ushered into our nature as humans is selfishness and self centeredness. We want what we want no matter what happens and no matter who gets hurt, as long as we get what we want. The third thing that was brought into our human nature is a sense of self righteousness. We tend to look at other people's failures more than our own. And so we tend to look at ourselves as being justified or righteous or proper in our decision making, even when, if we are honest with ourselves, we're not. And so there's that sense of self righteousness. The fourth one is actually a two-part thing that uh, they develop or feed upon one another. The fourth thing is that what we have in our nature as a result of this fall is shame and an aversion to responsibility. Adam and Eve started blaming other people and other things for their failings. So we are shamed, and in that shame, we try and find a scapegoat for our failures. And that is a part of human nature. That's where we are. That's what we do as humans. Part of that makes it very difficult for us to really, as it were, walk through or walk by the graveyards in life. I thought about that in relationship to our own experience. The man Bertrand Russell, who was a philosopher, also an agnostic, uh, in the 1950s talked about the struggle that we have, because by that time it was pretty clear that because of the second law of thermodynamics, our universe is on a very slow decay path. Eventually, it will end up a dark, cold place with energy lost in randomness in among the matter. And so it will be a cold and dark, lifeless place. In light of that, nothing that we do, all of our immortality projects, all the things we try to accomplish, will fail. They are not going to have an ultimate success, no matter whether they're symbolic or whether we are really trying to live physically forever. And some of us are strangely trying to do that. The modern philosophical attempt of materialism to understand the world was actually kicked off by a man by the name of Albert Schopenhauer. I want to say his name right. He lived until 1860, but he really created the concept of modern materialism. This idea that all that exists is material, and that is all that exists in the world, and that we cease to exist in that sense. He isn't the first to come up with that. The ancient Greeks had ideas like that, but he is the first one in modern philosophy to press forward that idea and have it take hold within the culture. In the ancient world, you had the writer of Ecclesiastes, Solomon, who talks about the meaninglessness of life and the sense that life comes to a meaningless end ultimately. And so there is a sense in which we, if we're materialists, whistle by the graveyard with a false sense of bravado. We are masters of our own ship. We are controlling our own destiny. But in truth, it's just not that way, is it? It just really isn't that way. I thought about that in relationship to a wonderful fable that is told by Aesop. That fable is The Fox and the Grapes. And you can look that fable up. It's pretty interesting fable with a good parallel for us to understand. The idea that we find all kinds of ways when we are unable to grasp the reality we want, we find all kinds of ways to rationalize that. And when we cannot grasp immortality, we find ways of rationalizing it. It really isn't worthwhile. Who'd want to ever live forever? We're just lucky that we got to live because of all the others that didn't get the opportunity to live. Death really doesn't mean anything. I didn't exist before I was born. I existed for a few minutes, and then I won't exist after I die. So I don't really care. I'm just going to live my life as stoically as I can without concern about people or things or circumstances. Detach from everything. I'm just going to live in the moment. That's all that's really important, is this moment that I'm living in right now. Nothing is really real. We're all the same substance. The universe is all the same substance. So what happens, happens. Or, well, when I dissolve, my particles return to the earth and they are used in making new things. And so, In a sense, I do have an immortality in that sense. None of those are good answers. None of those are good rationalizations in life. They have a lot of failings and a lot of problems. Anybody with a little simple logic can get around those. The truth of the matter is that we need to trust in Jesus Christ. He is the only one that gives us the ability to really whistle by the graveyard, to have a confidence as we walk through this life, whether we live or whether we face death. We have a confidence about our lives. We have a confidence because of who he is and what he accomplished in his death and resurrection. I hope you have confidence in Jesus today. I hope you have confidence in his resurrection. God's blessings on you. You have a wonderful day. We'll see you in church.